Welcome back to a Thanksgiving episode of the Exempt List. I'm your host, Charles McDonald, and today we're going to be talking about some things that we're thankful for with Yahoo's Frank Schwab. We're going to get right into it. All right, this was a pretty interesting week of NFL football to talk about it and break it down. I have Yahoo's Frank Schwab. Frank, how you doing?
Good. Are you a big Thanksgiving guy? Are you?
Yes.
It's great, right? Like, it's a whole holiday. You don't got to worry about gifts. Like, I hate to be that guy, but right, there's no stress with gifts and giving and all that. It's just, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to eat until I explode. I'm going to watch football. Like, literally, it's made for us, man. Like, this is right up my alley. I love it.
Depending on like what your family's like, it can just be a day dedicated to debauchery, like because you get a few drinks and you.
Hey man, there's a reason I always like. We always split up the games, right? Like there's 3 games now, so okay, who's taking early? There's a reason I take the early game, man. Like it's like okay, it's bourbon o'clock once the Cowboys kick off. I'll tell you that.
As soon as that first game ends, I need something heavy in my system. I'm excited. We're gonna have a bunch of family over, a lot of food, so. It's a good time of year.
Awesome.
And I was thankful that we got a good slate of NFL action this weekend because I think when we were coming into to week 11 and just looking at the schedule before, it's like, oof, doesn't really look like there's a whole lot of exciting action here. But we actually got quite a bit to talk about as far as what this week delivered. But as usual, we're going to start with the funny stuff from the weekend, including a foreboding moment with the Jets where Zach Wilson accidentally ran over Robert Saleh on the sideline. And, and not to say that this moment led to his benching. There were a whole bunch of other reasons for that. But it is kind of funny that he ran over Saleh on the sideline in a game where he was benched and his Jets career basically ended.
Yeah, it would have been awesome if that actually did lead to his benching. Like Saleh's like, that's it. Like, I can deal with the interceptions and never getting a first down and not scoring for 45 straight possessions, but you ran into me on the sideline. It's over. Tim Boyle go in there. Tim Boyle wouldn't run me over on the sideline. And the great part about it was Saleh tried to like hold him up. I mean, it's almost like the way he's treated him all year. I thought he's going to hold him up like Lion King, because, he has been protecting him all year until basically, yes, like ironically, that moment shortly after we finally benched him and moved on to something. Because with the Jets, it was like, we have to do something else, anything else, pick somebody out the street. Who cares? We can't watch this anymore.
I just can't believe he got as long of a leash as he did. And I just also don't get why Saleh would just come in and say that he's playing well. Like, you don't have to.
Yeah, everybody knows. The thing about me and you both know this. Guys in that locker room are really, really sharp and they know everything that's going on. And if a guy stinks, they know it. Like, you're not fooling them. Like, they know who Zach Wilson is. They might not come out and say it to us, but they know it amongst each other. And for Saleh to come out, like you said, he's playing well. It's not only his fault. Well, yeah, I guess that's a way to pitch it. But when he defended this guy every single week, honestly, I wonder if it hurt his credibility in the locker room. Because all these guys know, they understand. And maybe they also understand he's got to say that. It's New York market, man. They're going to eat him up if he says anything else. But I think one of the weird things about this season was how much Robert Saleh went out of his way to defend Zach Wilson. When again, they went 45 straight possessions without a touchdown. Like, it's just not NFL football at some point.
Yeah, which is why it got to the point where people were kind of asking, like, is there something like bigger going on here? Because obviously he's bad. Like, it's not even bad in a way where you can kind of squint and say, well, maybe we're doing some things here and there that are helping our offense. No, it's just all kind of bad. So,
dude, Tommy DeVito played a better game on Sunday than Zach Wilson's ever played in the NFL.
Yes.
Tommy DeVito.
Easy.
I didn't even know that guy existed. They might have been making him up. Like, seriously, like, his real name might be Rick Smith. I have no idea. Like, I don't remember him from college. I don't remember, he's a Big Ten guy and I don't remember him. And Tommy DeVito's had a better game than Zach Wilson.
I was just saying that to someone the other day. I was like, this guy played like 4 years of almost 4 full seasons at Syracuse in Illinois. And I have no recollection of his college career whatsoever. Honestly, and I'm guessing this is probably just me being dumb. I had assumed he went to like Rutgers or something, Tommy DeVito, the Rutgers quarterback, local kid, ends up being the Giants' little practice squad guy, and now he's a starter.
Again, it could have been made up, and I would be like, whatever, sure. It doesn't really, it wouldn't affect me one way or another. I wouldn't know. Like, yeah. But do you think Zach ever? Do you think? I think we both agree Zach's Jets career's got to be done, right? I think you said that. Does he land anywhere else? Is this it? Like, let's say he gets cut after the season. Does anybody else pick him up? Like, is he that bad, that toxic that the second overall pick doesn't even get a second chance?
I mean, it'll probably just have to be on someone's practice squad, right? Wow. Because the thing is, this is not even like the worst quarterback Zach has got benched for, because he got benched for Chris Streveler last season.
That's right. Oh my goodness, right? Yeah.
So you have a pretty large sample size at this point of, okay, well, he can't even be like a backup quarterback. And the reason why I think people get on the Jets so hard about this is because this is something that we knew before the season started. You knew that Zach probably wasn't capable, or at least everything that he had showed you up to that point meant that you probably shouldn't just hand them the backup job behind a 39-year-old quarterback. Even in the instance that Rodgers was healthy, it was just kind of bad planning on their part. Like saying, well, Zach was a second overall pick, he can be the backup quarterback. Sometimes that's just not true. And I think that it's been hard for them to be honest with themselves about that.
Dude, it was a bad decision 3 weeks ago when the Cardinals were like, you want Joshua Dobbs? Okay, fine. We'll give you a seventh, you give a sixth back, whatever. That's basically the NFL's give up trade, right? Like, yeah, we're giving you a late round pick swap. And the Jets wouldn't even do that. Like, at some point, you had to be aware enough to know at that moment in time 3 weeks ago, Zach Wilson's not good. He's not leading us anywhere. He's ruining our season. I'm not saying Josh Dobbs is like a miracle worker, but he's better than what you got. And for a late round pick swap, sure, here you go, whatever. They're offering a sixth, we'll give a fifth, whatever.
Yeah, Brissett's sitting out there. If you want to get aggressive, maybe you could have asked for Jameis, but I don't get why they just did nothing. And it's probably going to cost them all their jobs, and which makes a really fascinating scenario to me, where this season has been bad enough where there are going to be consequences for it. Just in terms of like we just said, you just walked into the season with Zach Wilson as your starting or your backup quarterback. The offensive line, you really made no moves on this offseason outside of drafting Joe Tippmann in the second round.
And yeah, but you signed Dalvin Cook. You used your salary cap space on Dalvin Cook for 2.7 yards per carry or whatever he said.
Right. He can't even move. I do think it's interesting to think about, like, if Aaron gets healthy or when he gets healthy, if Nate Hackett's not here, if Robert Saleh's not here, if Joe Douglas isn't here, if they're pushing Randall Cobb and even maybe Alan Lazard out the door, what does that do for like Aaron's chances or his desire to be here? Because part of the reason why he came was he got a lot of power and got to make a handful of decisions, and none of those decisions really seem to be working out without Aaron Rodgers. And with Hackett, like, I don't really know how you can justify bringing him back after this season, especially, if he's supposed to be this quarterback-friendly guy. You would hope that Zach Wilson would see some progress, but he looks worse than he did last year. I don't really know what they're going to do with Aaron if they end up firing his buddies.
Yeah, one of the Broncos beat writers I know out here, Andrew Mason's been tweeting every week. And I'm going to get the stat a little bit wrong here, so give me some slack. But I believe it's in 15 of the last 17 games, Nathaniel Hackett's been the play caller. His team has scored one touchdown or fewer on offense. It's unbelievable. Like, Hackett's got to go. Some of the other guys got to go. You've kind of mentioned this. I've kind of mentioned this too, after kind of piggybacking you a little bit. I don't know that Aaron wants to come back. I think this whole, like, yeah, I'm going to come back by the end of the year. To me, it signals I'm done after this year anyway. I didn't want to leave like that. I want at least one last hurrah, and I know I'm not coming back next season. That's kind of my conspiracy theory anyway.
That's mine too.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're going to do the reckless speculation sound, and like, there's no reason to, if you plan on being here next year, there's no reason to even to risk it this year.
No reason for the Jets to even entertain the thought.
Right.
Like, but no, we're not doing this. Why? We got next year. What are we doing?
But like, if he's going to retire, why not? Screw it. Like,
yeah, that's the whole thing. Like, I've always said, this is like, me and you are on the same page, and I'm glad, because there's so many people out there who are like, oh my God, Aaron Rodgers said he's coming back. He's definitely coming back. Like, come on, people. Let's have a little bit of skepticism here. Like, this ain't happening. Like, unless He's just like, screw it, whatever. Like, I'm not playing next year. So let's just do this and see what happens. Like that, then it actually makes sense. But other than that, no. And that's why I kind of think maybe he's already made up his mind. Like, I just don't want to, I'm 40, like whatever. I just don't want to play anymore.
Yeah. I think the biggest reason why it doesn't make sense now is the supporting cast has deteriorated to a point where I don't even know if they could run a real offense with him in there. I think they're on their 8th offensive line combination of the season this week. Elijah Vera Tucker's been out. Mekhi Becton just got hurt again.
Wow, shocking.
Yeah.
Can't believe that.
Yeah. Dwayne Brown, who was projected to be their starting left tackle this year, he hasn't played much this year.
40. What is he, 41, 40? Like,
he was drafted the same year as Matt Ryan, you know?
Oh my goodness, you're right. Wow. And he's a beast, don't get me wrong, but that's your plan. Like, come on, James.
But, you know, at this point, to expect him to be your starting left tackle.
Yeah, no.
It's you know, you're just walking on thin ice when you don't have to everywhere, and it's gonna cause some heads to roll. Another funny thing from the weekend, the Bears somehow they falconed it this weekend against the Lions. They kicked the field goal to go up 26-14 with 4 minutes left in the game, and they lost 31-26, which, like, when you start thinking about it, it's like, holy crap, like how does the math work on that one? I thought the 2-minute drill that the Lions had at the end of that game to score the touchdown to go up 29-26 before Fields was strip sacked for the safety that ended up making it 31-26. I thought that drive was so fascinating because they just ran the ball right down the field in a 2-minute drill.
Right.
Like it was amazing.
I
think 2 of their biggest plays were runs on that one, and they ran the ball 4 times in general on a 2-minute drill, which is something that you just don't really see all that often.
I'm going to complain about this. I complained about it Sunday night with Fitz, but not everybody listens every show. You're going to have to listen to me complain again. I know nobody cares about my bad beats, but I'm in a survivor pool. You know, I stink in them, but for one shining moment, I've actually gotten deep in the season. There's 3 people left, right? I had the Jaguars. They're up like a million, right? They won, thank goodness. One of my buddies who runs a pool had the Commanders. They're losing. The third guy had the Lions. Well, I'm in. I'm spending this money, C-Mac. I'm like, oh my goodness, like I got this. Like the Bears are going to beat the Lions somehow. And I'll tell you what, like, I mean, you know, we both, I live gambling, you dabble in gambling. And so you have a mindset that when Fields missed that pass downfield on 3rd down that they had that thing.
It was over.
Immediately, I was like, okay, the ball game. Like, the Lions win. Like, there's no question in my mind. Absolutely, positively no question in my mind. The moment that ball hit the turf, when he had that guy downfield, I can't even remember who he threw to. It wasn't his main guys.
Tyler Scott.
It was Tyler Scott. Yeah, you're right. The moment the ball hit the turf, I'm like, okay, well, Lions win. That stinks. Like, it's just, you just know at some point. So, but yes, the Bears screwing that up was hilarity. The Lions just have no respect. Like when you're right, that 2-minute drill, it's kind of disrespectful. I'm like,
yeah,
we're just gonna run it on you. We know
David Montgomery runs right down your throat into the end zone.
Hurry here. Like, we got this. Like, you ain't stopping us. So I loved it. I mean, and if all the coaches were gonna do it, you'd be like, yeah, that Dan Campbell. Yeah, that was a Dan Campbell team that just decided to run it down their throat in a 2-minute drill of all things.
I do think it was interesting that Fields did play well on Sunday. Maybe you could have had a little more touch on that last throw, but I mean, the guy, it was a good read. Just, you know, sometimes just missed the throw. I think that's kind of interesting for them. If he's able to build and kind of stack on that performance and play well through the rest of the season, do you think it changes what they might be thinking about with the draft? Because they're almost, we've seen the Panthers play. They're almost guaranteed to have the number 1 pick at this point.
Yeah, and if they get below number 2, it's a freaking miracle. So yeah,
dude. If the Panthers win one more game this year, it's probably a miracle.
Yeah, Frank Reich's probably already like searching for houses elsewhere. But I'm going to be quick on this because you're the draft guy. I want to hear you, to be honest with you. I don't think there's any realistic scenario in which the Bears would pass up Caleb or Drake May. He's good. I like Justin Fields, but you're restarting a rookie clock on a rookie deal. Justin Fields hasn't been consistent enough to, especially as a passer, to really feel like this guy's an MVP someday. I like him. I do. And I think you could also get something for Justin Fields. There's so many teams are down so bad at quarterback that somebody's paying him and somebody's paying up in a trade.
The Jets would kill to have a quarterback like
right.
Justin Fields
There's a lot of teams we could talk about with that. So a couple questions for you. Is there any way they pass on one of these two guys? And I'm really I want to actually get down to this with you. I'm a Caleb guy. I think Caleb's awesome. I think Caleb is the truth. I know you've kind of come around to Drake May being number one. Are you still why? Convince me that Drake May is better than Caleb Williams. And also, what do you think the Bears do?
I'm not sure Drake May is better than Caleb Williams. To me, it's more just he's just as legit a franchise quarterback prospect to me as Caleb Williams is. And
both of these guys would go number one in most of the last 10 drafts. Right.
Agreed, for sure. And I think with Drake, it's just kind of a Styles argument. Drake's a great athlete like Caleb, but he's not quite as there's less risk to his game sometimes. Whereas Caleb, it's just some of the most explosive, ridiculous plays that you've ever seen. I think that they're both have the ceiling to be top 10 quarterbacks in the league. Caleb's ceiling is probably a little bit higher just because the arm is it's really out of this world.
It's stupid. It is. I went to that Colorado USC game, and I hate the whole he's the next Mahomes, because there's really only one Mahomes. But yet there's some
even
throws
Mahomes
he made where I was like,
the next Mahomes.
Oh my God, I've seen that before, and it's on Sundays with a guy wearing number 15. That's unbelievable. There's not many guys on the planet can do what he does.
I think with Caleb, maybe some of the concern is he's going to be a sack machine in the NFL, especially early on. And maybe at that size, you get a little worried about him taking hits, but it's not like he's Bryce Young size. He's got some build to him. So I don't really think that I haven't really fully decided if I'm Team May or Caleb, but I think that just speaks more about how good both of those guys are, and I wouldn't really have a problem picking either one.
So do you think the Bears are? Is there any scenario in your mind where the Bears basically pick Justin Fields over Caleb / Drake May?
Well, I guess the question is how good would Justin Fields have to play to get to that point? Yesterday was a good starting point. It's just when you watch Fields, there's so many plays that he makes that one or two other quarterbacks in the league can make. I mean, he led the Bears in rushing yesterday. He had 104 yards on the ground to go along with a pretty efficient day throwing the ball. It's just his good moments look so crazy, so elite, but they're just too few and far between. Right. So I think with Justin, he would have to play and this is a high bar to reach. But in order for him to stay as Chicago's quarterback, he would probably need to play a top 12 quarterback for the next 6 weeks of the season.
The other layer to this, though, which we have to consider, obviously. Let's say the Patriots are sitting there at number 3. And they're we're getting shut out of this quarterback mix. We'll give the world to you for number 1. You could draft Marvin Harrison Jr. You keep Justin Fields. I mean, look at what the Bears got for basically Bryce Young. I mean, they I talked about this a ton. They basically got the pick that became Jalen Carter, DJ Moore, and the pick that's going to become Caleb Williams or Drake May. You could get double that for Caleb or Drake, right? I mean, some team in that, you're not going to have to fall too far in the draft. You're still going to have a top 10 pick. You still got a quarterback who, like you said, at times flashes whoa, this is unique. And you're just going to stock so many draft picks and players and whatever you want. That's a layer to this too. So I think that'll be bouncing around the Bears' brains. But at the end of the day, I just think they just say Drake May, Caleb, whoever it is, whoever they prefer, take him, move on. But it's going to be very, very interesting to see what they do.
Yeah, I would say I still would say the best case scenario for the Bears here is that Justin Fields takes a rapid ascension for the next 6 weeks, and the Panthers keep losing, right? Because then you can sell that number 1 pick, like you said. You can go down to 3, you can go down to 4 or whatever. And I think why that's also advantageous is if you start looking for quarterbacks in college football past, not just past Drake and Caleb, because I don't really think the quarterback class is all that strong or convincing outside of that, but just past this year, there's not a whole lot of saviors coming down the pipeline in college football right now. So I think that might even drive up the value of that number 1 and number 2 pick for teams that are thinking a little bit far ahead. So if Justin Fields gets to a point where they decide to bring him back, that number 1 pick is going to be worth
more than we've ever seen. More than we've
ever seen.
Go look at what the Rams gave for Goff. Go look at what, again, the Panthers gave for Bryce Young. This is not Bryce Young and Jared Goff. It is a lot more.
Even with whatever flaws people want to say about Caleb, you're not finding many quarterbacks that are playmakers in the same manner that he is. I feel like what I love about Caleb is it feels like any second you could be in store for a 75-yard touchdown. And that's just what makes him, such an exciting option. But yeah, for Fields, he would need to play out of this world for the next few weeks to secure his status as the Bears quarterback. Another funny thing from the weekend. Poor Patrick Mahomes, dude.
Oh my God.
Charles. Free him.
Oh. It's so hard.
I want to say he's not blameless in that game because he had a terrible interception in the red zone. But
he missed a lot of passes. There's no question. He missed a lot of passes.
Yeah. But he made the one you needed to make.
The 2. Right? I'm sorry. The 2. Everybody's on that MVS play, right? I have to. 4th and 25 is impossible in the NFL. 4th and 25 is impossible. And he put a laser right on Justin Watson's hands. If he completes that, it's oh my God, how did he do that? And he did it. And he got dropped. So one play sequence, one down sequence, he had 2 absolutely positively A+ throws that bounced off his receiver's hands. Oh my God. Oh, brutal.
So frustrating. And it's just I don't really understand this because these are the same receivers that they had last year, and they weren't.
Right. Somebody asked me on Twitter, somebody was like, what did you expect with this group of receivers? I'm like, well, he won a Super Bowl last year, so
probably he won the MVP
just a Super
last
Bowl.
year.
I don't see why I don't see why I thought they were going to go 8-9 with these receivers. It was a Super Bowl with these guys last year.
Yeah, they've gotten their skill at receiver has gotten worse, which is unusual for how young this group is. I mean, Sky Moore is a young guy. Kadarius Toney, Marcus Valdes-Scantling is a little bit older, but he was much more productive last year than he was this year. It's just I don't understand why all these guys took such a hard step back from where they were to the point where I don't trust anyone to catch a pass when it when it goes their way. And even it's not even just the missed passes. It's you have guys where they're really showing just weird lack of skill on offense where the ball's in the air and they just misjudge it so bad that they're put themselves out of position to even make a play, or they're stopping running when they should run. There was one play where Justin Watson read it wrong and was about to run right into a post, and Mahomes was trying to throw it open for a go route. They just have really lost whatever progress they made on that side of the ball, because it kind of seemed like after the Super Bowl, it's damn, if you can just get one more guy in here with what you have, they made enough growth, or maybe you can run it back. But this year, it's just so hard for them to to generate these big plays, which is pretty unusual from a Patrick Mahomes-led offense.
Yeah, it really is. I don't know why Rashee Rice isn't basically what Tank Dell is with Houston. Just, you're our number 1 guy. You're going to run every route. We're going to feed you targets. We got nobody else, Rashee. You're going to have to learn. You have to step it up right now, because I think he's our best guy. I actually like Rashee Rice. I like some of the things he's shown, but he's not Tank Dell. I mean, he's not a lot of these rookie receivers we've seen the past few years just come in and dominate and get 1,000 yards. Even he's not there yet as a guy. So, and part of this too is Kelsey. Kelsey's very, very, very good. Don't get me wrong. But I think we can see that Kelsey's not quite the same guy. He has it's been a while since he's broken 50 yards in a game and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, it's chicken and egg. Is he getting more coverage because the receivers don't scare anybody, or the receivers not scaring anybody because Kelsey's not really dominant anymore? I don't know. I just know that, everybody's, Patrick Mahomes has been the favorite for MVP most of the season. I haven't checked the odds today, but I've kind of been
I think Jalen Hurts is moving to number 1.
Hurts, it makes sense with the win yesterday. But I've pushed back on it all year and said Mahomes is not playing at an MVP level. I love Mahomes. He's great. He may be the most talented quarterback I've ever seen in my life. But this year, this is not an MVP season from Patrick Mahomes. Maybe not all his fault. That's fine. But I see this is all just snowballing, where he obviously doesn't trust these guys. He's holding the ball too long. they're not making plays when he does make it. He's forcing throws like he did to Bayard last night in the end zone. And it's just, everything is just getting worse and worse and worse for this Chiefs team, who last night I wrote a little bit in my gamer on this, basically saying, if you would have said like a year or two ago, you're going to give Patrick Mahomes this defense, which I think is top 5. Like it's easily the best defense Mahomes has ever had. Kelsey said it's the best one of his career. I agree with that. And this Pacheco's a good, solid running back. Like he tough yards, all that kind of stuff. This running game, this defense, and the Chiefs are still kind of It's hard for me to believe. Now, I don't want to nitpick them too much. They lost by 4 points to the Eagles. They lost by 1 point to the Lions. This is a team that's getting blown out.
Yeah, they're still really good.
Yeah, and they could win a Super Bowl. There's no question. But this is not a vintage Chiefs team. I mean, they're going to have to kind of limp to the finish line and figure something out in January.
Yeah, it kind of feels like with Mahomes, like things have become so congested this year that he almost like doesn't know how to deal with it during the games, where, because I feel like some of these bad plays that he finds himself in, I think the Jets game is a great example. Like he starts pressing, like, where the hell is my big play? Why hasn't anyone popped open for something yet? Even last year, they were finding ways to get guys open, and with the same exact group of receivers with less experience last season, they had a much better offense to the point where he was able to put up a monster season and win another MVP award. I think he's feeling this season it's just not as easy as it was the past few years, and that's something that he's going to have to figure out. Like, okay, if you've gone a few drives without a big play, that doesn't mean you just got to launch it down the field and try and make something happen, or you throw it right to Kevin Byard in the end zone, or throw some of those interceptions to the Jets from that Sunday night game a couple of months ago. It's not like his status as the best quarterback in the league has diminished to me at all. I think he's still pretty comfortably the best guy. Like, dude, the corner route that he threw yesterday that hit Justin Watson like right on the sideline, where he just lofted it over the whole field. It's like, oh my, like there's only a couple guys that can do that. But he just needs to kind of chill out and realize for the rest of this season, he's going to have to make some adjustment on his own part, because the big plays, they're just not really there to be had. You probably just have to be something that you're not used to being. That's like a 5-yard grinded out, because they can move the ball. They had 2 red zone turnovers yesterday. So I think like still moving the ball is something that they're good at, but not making the dumb plays when things kind of sputter a little bit is something that he could work on for himself.
Yeah. Definitely pressing more than we've ever seen him press before. But when he pressed before, it just worked out because he's so great, right? Like, I mean, he makes plays that we would say, like, if they don't work out, you're like, oh, Mahomes is pressing. Well, 3 years ago, it was a 65-yard touchdown. I mean, just because, he is that great. I mean, I know people push back on that and, oh, you guys praise him too much. Well, he's a great quarterback. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, yes, he's made mistakes this year. Bro. Yeah, it's like he's off to the best start in NFL history for any player, except maybe like Jim Brown. He's great. He's pressing this year. He's not the MVP. He's still capable of winning a Super Bowl, but they got to figure some things out. I mean, it's just frustrating because, again, this Chiefs defense is so good that, I mean, they if you would have said, hey, Chiefs got top 5 defense this year, you'd have been like, wow, are they chasing 17-0? Like, I mean, this is unbelievable to watch kind of the Chiefs become this kind of grinded out, ground and pound team with Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. It's really strange.
Last thing before we get into some news from the day. The Falcons have announced they're going back to Desmond Ridder as the starter, which is...
Do you want my Lamar Jackson rant again? I do this all the time because I'm just taking laps. I'm just taking laps from March when...
I just couldn't believe they were the first team that said no.
Yeah, they're like, nah, we're good.
And then
Lamar, that guy, who? Lamar, who? We got Desmond Ridder. We're fine. Like, and now you're sitting here. It's November 21st. You're in the most winnable division in football, and you're like, Desmond Ridder, Tyler Heineke. Like, what are we doing here? Like, come on, you could have had an MVP, or at least try. Like I get the whole point of like the Ravens are going to match anyway. Maybe, yeah, they probably do. But to try, like, there's a once in a lifetime opportunity.
No harm in trying.
No harm in trying. Okay, you're tying up that much money for 10 days. So you lose Von Bell in free agency. Who cares? Like, you don't sign Von Bell. Whatever. It happens. I mean, you had a chance. We've never seen that where basically 26-year-old MVP was out on the market still in his prime. Not a Dante Culpepper situation where he was hurt or Drew Brees or anything. He's healthy. He's ready to go. And Falcons, like you said, first team out of the box, be like, nah, that ain't our style. I still don't get it, man. I still don't get it. I never will get it. I never will understand. I even though I know there's this nod and wink agreement of like, we're not going to sign your restricted free agents and all that kind of stuff. We all know that there's something going on there, right? Yeah, I mean, of course, you don't want to step on toes or anything like that. But that's a situation where Arthur Blank should be like, bro, I'm 78 years old or whatever he is. He's
81, I think.
Is he up to 81? He should be like, I ain't got much time left. I'm giving it up my all. How much can we offer him? Offer him as much as, give him a blank check. And if the Ravens match, God bless you.
God bless him. Right. And the thing is, like, after they benched Ridder because he kept fumbling the ball, the frustrating part with Ridder is he got so much better at throwing the ball as the season progressed. Like, just in terms of his accuracy, how he was functioning, and then he just started fumbling the ball like every other play. So you have to set him down, bench him, just because it's not fair to the other players. Like, you can't produce and perform like that. And
he could be fine, but you can't turn it over. If you're going to be game managers, can't turn it over. That's the whole point. Right. Like, you got to be one or the other. Like, either you're making a ton of plays and turning it over sometimes, kind of the not full Jameis, but close. But or okay, I'm not a very high ceiling guy, but I'm going to give you no turnovers, and we'll see if we can win games. And he's really neither at this point.
Yeah, and then Taylor Heineke came in, and it got worse. Like, you had the second half against Tennessee, where they looked like a functional offense for the first time in a while. And then you had the Minnesota game and the Arizona game where they couldn't really get anything going. I think they finished the Arizona game with like 70 yards passing, which is like, it got to the point where I was like, this is a waste of time. We know Taylor Heineke is not going to be the Falcons' long-term quarterback. Ridder is like, you can at least see what you got through the end of the season. So I'm glad that just like from a logic perspective, they decided to make that pick. I don't care if Ridder throws 5 picks on Sunday against the Saints. You don't need to see Heineke again. I don't think he's going to be on the roster next year. You gave it a chance. It wasn't what you thought it was. And that's kind of what the mantra of the Falcons have been since they lost that Super Bowl. You gave it a chance. It wasn't what you thought it was.
It's rough, man. I feel for you, dude. Because it is just, you just know, like, what are we picking between? Okay, we're Desmond Ridder again. Great. Oh, awesome. You know what that offense is going to look like. You're going to be frustrated the rest of the season, no matter whether they switch again, they don't switch again. Yeah, it's just, and they've won enough games and are going to win enough games going forward where they're not going to be in position to draft anybody. Like,
yeah, they're going to have to trade up if they want someone. Yeah, and unfortunately for my dream, it feels like I think Kyler Murray might be playing himself into just staying as the Cardinals quarterback.
Seems like it. Yep.
Yeah, he's not perfect, but dude, he's like, the fact that he looks like this just right off from ACL injuries, pretty impressive.
Shocks me how he's moving. And you're reminded, I'm not the biggest Kyler fan in the world. I just feel like the contract just doesn't match the production. But you do see, he's like, we talked about Justin Fields, but even better, where you see plays from Kyler, you're like, jeez, like, man, if you could harness that every single play, like, you'd be the most unstoppable player in the league. Like, there are moments, especially even coming off ACL, where he looks like old Kyler. And I agree with you. Like, you don't dump Kyler Murray to go draft Michael Penix. Like, I guess if you get a top 2 pick, sure, but you're probably not. So I don't know. It's going to be, the Kyler thing's going to be very, very interesting in the offseason too, if they do have a top 2 pick.
Yeah, I would just be so tempted to just say, Marvin, welcome to Arizona.
It'd be fun. It'd be fun.
We'll figure this out later, because obviously you can do worse with Kyler. I don't know. I just think Marvin's so good that I would be tempted just to.
He's the best receiver
Kyler.
Prospect you've ever seen, right?
He's the best since like the AJ Green, Julio Jones draft, I would say.
Yeah, that was a good call. That's a good callback. Yeah. But he's unbelievable. Yeah, it's got to be tempting to be like, hey, okay, Kyler and Marvin? Yeah, let's go.
Like, I feel like you would have to have historic levels of incompetence to mess up having Marvin Harrison Jr. as your wide receiver 1. I've been telling some people, my biggest fear for him is that he ends up on a team without a quarterback, because this is a guy I think who could hit
the
like
Patriots draft him or something, like, hey, Mac Jones. There we go.
I don't want that at all, because I think in the right situation he could be an all-pro as a rookie. Like, I really think he's that good.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So come on, like, if he ends up in New England, I'm going to go on the draft is a moral rant on Twitter saying we need to disband this. let Marvin Harrison sign with a team of his choice.
Chiefs, so we fixed everybody's problems.
Right. Imagine how much fun that would be. Maybe not for Raiders or Chargers or Broncos fans, but again, that's not my problem. I'm here to see touchdowns. And I know Marvin can score a lot of them. Let's talk about a team that's not scoring very many touchdowns at all. The Steelers have reached the turning point of their season. Matt Canada was, honestly, I was pretty shocked by this. Matt Canada was fired after Week 11 loss to the Cleveland Browns. And the only reason why I'm shocked by this is because it's the Steelers more so than anything. And I just feel like this isn't really something that they normally would do.
Did you see that stat? I just saw it in passing, so I don't want to get it wrong, but they have not fired a coach in season since 1941. This was the first time.
I believe it.
And it's like, how do you go that long? And who in 1941 got fired? I need to hear this backstory. Like, what did he do back then? But
they've only had 3 coaches in the modern era, right?
Right. And they've all been, they for some reason, hold on to this whole, like, we can't fire a coach in season thing like the Bears do. But I mean, you go 70-some years without firing a coach in season, 80, I guess. And yeah, it is shocking. But it's long overdue. I mean, Steelers fans have been calling for this since how long has he been almost since the moment he took over as coordinator? They've been complaining about him. That's kind of the job, I guess. But in this case, it something had to change. This offense is just, it's unwatchable. And he almost had to do it for Kenny Pickett's sake to be like, we need to figure out what we got with Pickett. Was it Matt Canada's fault? I think they know too. I think they know too. But you still have to give the option of, maybe the offense coordinator was so bad that Kenny can show us something by the end of the year. We can go forward in year 3, but that offense unwatchable. I'll be real with you. I did have the Steelers on Sunday. Had them +1. I'm like, it's against DTR. That defense, like the Steelers could score enough to watching that team. Possession after possession. Kenny Pickett's throwing to nobody. He's not even throwing past the sticks most of the time. They get one run from Jaylen Warren, basically, and that's it. That offense was horrid. Like, there's a lot of horrid offenses out there, but that one was the most frustrating because you expect a little more. I know what I'm getting out of Zach Wilson. I know what I'm getting out of a lot of these backup quarterbacks who are playing, but the Pittsburgh Steelers are supposed to be better than this.
Well, there's it's not just that the Steelers are bad. It's just that they're boring too. Like it's just there's nothing. Like it just seems so difficult for them to get anything going on any possession at all. And it's funny. Like Steelers fans will be like, we need to fire Matt Canada so we can figure out if Kenny Pickett's bad or not. Like I think it's just both. Like they both need to go.
I do think it's both. I'd agree with you there.
I mean, when you watch Kenny Pickett play, like I've never seen a first-round quarterback just look so physically outmatched against like the competition. It's just, I don't even think that you need to be the biggest, strongest guy out there, but I'm not even trying to sound mean, but it just feels like futile attempt after futile attempt when he drops back to pass. You don't really have the arm strength. He's not really trying to sit back there and get hit. He runs a 4.6, but he's not like a super like legit scary threat with his legs. But you kind of get into like this like Steelers Colts stuff where if the defense can just make enough plays, he's had like a couple moments in the fourth quarter this year, but like you're watching 3.5 quarters of just nothing, like where you can't move the ball at all. You're missing routine passes. And then you kind of pair that with some of the inconsistencies from George Pickens, Najee Harris not being the running back that, he was built to be as a first-round pick. The offensive line still gelling. I mean, it's just, they can't do anything out there. So like it was probably time for this to happen, but I don't really think this changes anything about how like their scoring is going to be for the rest of the season. It's just what it is.
The one thing that kind of struck me about this, though, I had to kind of give the Steelers credit, is they're very self-aware for a 6-4 team. Usually when teams have winning records, like, we're not changing anything. We're not going to screw with a winning streak, right? But you saw Najee Harris go off in the locker room and say this isn't good enough, even though they're 6-4. You saw them fire Matt Canada. Usually teams with winning records are like, we're We're winning games. Why should we change anything? I actually kind of applaud the Steelers for being a little self-aware here, making that change, because they need to be better. They need to figure this out. Like, you talk about George Pickens' inconsistency. Najee Harris isn't the running back we thought. But is that because the quarterback's bad? Their offensive coordinator is bad? I think George Pickens is awesome. Deontay Johnson's really good. Pat Freiermuth is a really good tight end. Yeah. Najee and Jalen Warren are two good runners. They should be better now.
They should be a lot better. I think like if you move on from Kenny Pickett and are able to just find like big average quarterback play, I don't see why that offense couldn't take a major step forward next year.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You're right, because the thing that I've been worried about with the Steelers, and maybe it's just because I say I'm worried about this because I'm just a huge fan of Mike Tomlin, and I think that his coaching streak, maybe you don't have the Super Bowls, but to never have a losing season is so damn impressive that, I think sometimes we get a little bit too championship pilled in the way that we talk about sports, that you just can't ignore just how consistently good and consistently competitive teams are. And that's since like 2007. Think about how much has changed in the NFL since then, and he's been able to adapt and do that. If you can just go and get just league average quarterback play, I think this offense can take a huge step forward. And then you have a chance to get back into competing for the division, because one thing that the Steelers, they might not have like the whole roster depth, but when you have a handful of guys who are just like assassins out there on the football field, like Minka Fitzpatrick when he's at his best, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith. I mean, think about the Ravens game. Yeah, the Ravens blessed you with a million drops that should have been touchdowns, but when you needed to win the game, you still got TJ Watt hunting down Lamar Jackson for a strip sack at the end of it. So,
or like, the Browns game where it's like, well, we know the offense isn't going to score, but here's a defense going to score a touchdown for us to win the game. TJ Watt takes one in. Like, you're right. They have such top end talent that it just feels like play, like you said.
They're just wasting time, is what it feels like. And I think Najee Harris, he put it succinctly after the loss on Sunday, because one thing about this loss to the Browns was it mirrored every other game that they've played this season, and they're 6-4. Even with how bad they've been on offense. And Najee Harris was like, you can look at the record and say, okay, we're still good right now. Or you can look at the record and be like, if we keep playing this type of football, how long is that going to last? Yep. There it is right there.
Yeah, I know everybody's heard the stat, but them being outgained in all 10 games is just mind-blowing. Like, wow, okay. And to be 6-4 with that is even more mind-blowing.
It's tough for any organization to admit they took the L on the first round quarterback, but
after 2 years,
it's not like you picked them top 5. You picked them 20th overall. Yeah. Like, this is relatively easy to move on from.
It was the EJ Manuel thing where it's like EJ Manuel's the top quarterback in this draft class, and he goes like in the 20s to the Bills. It's like, well, doesn't mean he's good just because he's number one in a bad class, and that's kind of Pickett. Like, he was number one in a bad class. Like, no other quarterback even win a second round. So. Yeah, but then again, okay, fine. You take the L on Kenny Pickett. What's next? Who's your quarterback on opening day 2024? Like, there's 10 teams going to be looking for a quarterback this offseason. It's not going to be easy to get
one. Frank, we have some breaking news.
Ooh, it's just being handed to me.
Shaq Leonard, former All-Pro linebacker for the Indianapolis Colts, has been released by the team, which is, wow. Like, he's kind of been one of the mainstays for their organization over the past few years. The timing on this is weird as hell, right?
Really weird. Like, they're 5-5, and I just wrote in Power Rankings today. The next 6 teams they play, the best quarterback they play in the next 6 games is Baker Mayfield. The best, like by far, like the best. They have just whatever the opposite of murderer's row is, a quarterback's coming up. So the Indianapolis Colts are right in a playoff race here. And Shaq Leonard, I mean, no, he's not what he was. He's all pro as a rookie. He was awesome as a rookie. He was just one of those dudes always around the ball. His play seriously has slipped. He's even talked about that, not knowing if he'd get back. He had the back surgery and all that kind of stuff. But to just get cut when you're 5-5 and right in the middle of a playoff race.
Right. It's weird.
Whew, that is really, really weird. So I don't know. It all seems like something else went down. Like maybe he asked for this. I don't know. We don't have all the details yet because we're just seeing this, but I'm shocked by this, to be honest. Even if he's a part-time player, which he kind of had been since, he kind of came back slowly this season. Even as a part-time player, who on that roster is better at that role? Like, I still think he's a guy who helps you, even though he's not an all-pro anymore.
It's interesting because so he's going to hit waivers. I can't imagine that teams are going to be tripping over themselves to pick up that contract.
No. I don't think they got the space for it. Or nor would they want a guy who's kind of a part-time player right now at that price.
Ian Rappaport tweeted that Leonard is due $6.1 million for the rest of the season. Well, first of all, if I was a team, I'd be curious, before I put in a waiver claim, why the hell is you get him released in the middle of the week for a team that's in playoff contention when if he clears waivers, right, and just becomes an unrestricted free agent, the Colts are responsible for still, some of that money. If you, according to SpotTrack.com, since he's a post June 1st release, they're saving $90,000 on their cap space for the rest of the season.
Well, like you're not getting it.
You can't even spend $90,000.
Yeah, no. I could. You just give it to me.
Well, I could.
The person wants to send me it. Like he could cut us both a check for $45. I'd be good with that.
I will take that deal right now, Jim. Merry Christmas to both of us. A quick $45,000 check in the mail. I would be cool with that. But an NFL players
there's got to be teams out there that are looking at this saying, okay, like we'll kick the Buffalo Bills. Like I mean, they're down Matt Milano, obviously. I think Dodson's filled in fine, and they have some out there. But like a team like that, who's kind of thin at linebacker and still has hopes for this season, why not kick the tires on Darius Leonard, see what he's got?
Yeah, and the thing is, like, if you do pick up his contract, it's very, very easy to get out of it next year. He only has $8 million in dead cap for the 2024 season. So, we've seen teams eat dead cap hits way bigger than $8 million. So if you do sign him, like if you're a team like the Bills, for example, and you get him into, if he makes it to where the Bills are on the waiver wire, that's something where you can try it out for a few games and then see what happens after the season. So
I'm just shocked. I really am, because that dude, I'm trying not to overstate this, but his first couple of years when he was healthy, you're like, this dude could make the Hall of Fame someday. Like, again, all pros are rookies. Hard to do. And he totally deserved it. I thought he should have been in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation that year. And for him to just be, like, he's a young guy still. I can't imagine he's more than 26.
28.
28, okay. A little older than I thought. But still, you should have some good years left at that position, man. I would cut. Oof.
I would imagine that the emergence, because they've kind of done a good job, like, drafting at linebacker recently.
Zaire Franklin's awesome, yeah.
Yeah. As a 7th round pick, that's someone that you can kind of count on. And even the other linebacker, EJ Speed, he's not bad either. EJ so good too. Maybe
but again, I mean, I get it, but that's kind of move you make on March 4th, right? Like,
right.
Yeah. Not when you're 5-5, because you're getting no benefit out of this. You're just you are just saying you're just not one of our 53 best guys, and that's really, really shocking to me.
I wonder if he asked for this.
Then that's what I wonder too, because he's not playing 100% of snaps or even close. Right. So you wonder if he's like, we're going to have to see more details. I think something else is going to come out here. Probably when we're taping a podcast here. Right? Like,
it's like, okay, so what I'm thinking about right now is, I'm kind of getting some, my radar is going off a little bit. And I'm kind of like,
yeah.
I don't know if I want to step in something that I might regret saying later. So not that anything could have been wrong, but you just got to be safe. So that's definitely interesting. And I'm sure over the next, 24 hours, we'll get a whole lot of news. And by the end of the week, I'm assuming he'll be on a new team, whether it's, through the waiver wire or through, free agency. I don't remember exactly how that works in the season, but I can't imagine a guy like that is going to be on the free agent market for very long, even with, some of the dip in this play. Because, I mean, I'm thinking about contenders, teams who are in the mix. Philadelphia, they could really use someone like Darius Leonard on their roster, especially
they seem to have 18 linebackers and none of them are great. Like,
they lost to Kobe Dean for a while. It's tough.
Cowboys?
Cowboys is a good one.
But, Cowboys might be in the mix. And Jerry loves big stars. Like, I mean, that kind of fits, right? There's not a ton of teams. I don't think there's a ton of teams out there who are just among the contenders anyway, who are really linebacker needy, as I could think about. Like the Chiefs are pretty good there, and I mean that kind of stuff. But I think somebody kicks the tire, not necessarily on waivers, because you're not going to want to pick up the $6.1 million. But if he clears, some contender is going to be like, hey, come try to win a ring with us. And if that was behind this at all, where Darius wanted to be out, like that probably appeals to him the rest of the year.
Yeah. Well, Darius Leonard may be having a tough day or a great day.
Or great day. We don't know. We don't know. Right. We have no idea. We're stuck here taping a podcast.
Right. We can talk about some things that we're thankful for. We're going to do one thing that we're thankful for from this NFL season. And I'm going to start off with the 49ers when they're at the peak of their powers on offense. It's like football porn to me. Like, I just like how well it's orchestrated, how good the players are. Brock Purdy, he had like one of my favorite game plans that like you can put together this past weekend when they beat the crap out of the Buccaneers. He completed 21 of his 25 passes, 333 yards, 3 touchdowns. So that's 13.3 yards an attempt. Perfect passer rating on the day. Over the past 2 weeks, his passer rating is 157.1. So over the past 2 weeks, he's almost got a perfect passer rating for 2 games combined. But this is my favorite part. I've come around to the idea that Brock Purdy is. I think he's pretty good. I think it's hard to have this level of production for this long, even with Shanahan as your quarterback, and not be like at least a little bit good. But he keeps it simple, man. I'm going to throw to my good players. So 4 players on the 49ers offense caught a pass this week. Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey. That's all you need, man.
Unbelievable. I was talking on Sunday with Fitz, man. Like we talk about, if we're just talking about like how much we talk about these guys, right? C-Mac obviously gets all the love. Kittle's so much fun. He's great. We talk about Deebo because he's such a unicorn. Ayuk is like a top 15 receiver in the NFL. He's kind of an afterthought. That's how good the 49ers are. Like Brandon Ayuk's awesome. Like Matt Harmon, our colleague, he's been way ahead of the curve on him, being like, this dude is a stud. Like, don't sleep on him. And he is, man. He is. But he's kind of their 4th biggest star on offense. It's unbelievable. And if you count Trent Williams, like maybe the greatest left tackle ever. Like this 49, I agree with you, man. Dude, if you're having to pick here on November 21st, do they win Super Bowl?
I think they represent the NFC. I think what we've learned over the past 2 weeks is that even the elite teams can go through a stretch where they struggle because they had the 3-game losing streak going into the bye. You know, it was fair to kind of be a little concerned about what was happening, and they came right out the bye and they've won 50 by a combined score of 51-17 over the past 2 weeks. And it's not, you know,
against pretty good teams. Like I'm not saying the Buccaneers are world beaters, but the Jaguars are good.
The Jaguars defense is good, and they dumped on them. So
yes, just kill them.
I think that this has been a good week, you know, good time for them. And I just love watching this. Like when Kyle Shanahan has good players and it's all clicking, you know, I hate to bring up 2016 Falcons, but like watching that offense throughout the season was crazy because, you know, you lock in on the talented players you have. He's really good at figuring out what these guys are good at. And he is just like a magician at just finding guys in the middle of the field in stride. And Mike McDonald's really good at this too, you know, like where somehow, some way, you know, at least 4, 5, 6 times a game, you're going to get Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk or Tyreek Hill or Julio Jones, whoever it is playing in that tree, running wide open across the middle of the field. And there's just nothing you can do to stop it because it's so well orchestrated. I really hope that Brock Purdy can stay healthy. I hope the rest of the team can stay healthy because that offense is just such a joy to watch, like when it's firing on all cylinders. I don't think there's like a prettier product in the whole sport.
Yeah. And even you look back at a 3-game losing streak and it's like, all right, you lost to the Browns, not ideal, but Browns are a pretty tough team to play. You lost at the Vikings, again, not ideal, but you're in the game at the end and the Vikings are pretty good. And then, yeah, you got boat raced by the Bengals, but Bengals are pretty good too. They got Burrow. So it's not like they have any loss on their schedule where you're like, oh my goodness, how did you lose to the New England Patriots like the Bills did? Like it's not great to take 3 in a row, but they're fine. They're fine.
What do you think for this year before we get out of here?
I'm actually really thankful that the Detroit Lions are good. Like I'm not from Michigan. I'm not a Lions fan, but I root for good fan bases who are starved for something great. And you could just tell by the way these Lions fans are traveling all around the country. Like they know that this is special. They are been waiting for this their whole lives, basically, unless you were alive in 1957 with Bobby Lane and all that. So the Detroit Lions being kind of one of the marquee teams on Thanksgiving. Did you ever think you'd see the day? Like you tuned in like in the 90s to see Barry. That was great, but they stunk. Like you see good players, you see Calvin or something. But for the Lions to be probably the best team playing, except maybe the 49ers on Thanksgiving, or Cowboys, I guess. The Lions are like one of the elite teams. I have them third in my power rankings. Like the Detroit Lions, if they could just get that number one seed, they can win a Super Bowl. Like you're 2 home games away from going to the Super Bowl, and then anybody can win it once you're there. I would love to see Ford Field just rocking in January for the number one seeded Lions. We finally go into a Thanksgiving where we're not saying, oh God, okay, we got to suffer through the Lions for 3 hours. We got to suffer through the Packers for 3 hours. It's more like, because the Lions might just crush them. So very thankful for the Lions as somebody who, my teams are from Milwaukee. I lived with a lot of bad teams until some kid from Greece showed up on the Bucs doorstep and turned us good. I always am sympathetic towards teams with fan bases that love them, but have just suffered and suffered and suffered. So hats off to the Lions. So glad for their fans. So glad they've had some success. And I'm rooting for them. I want to see this story go as long as it can.
Yeah. And I will say the number one seed is very attainable for them.
It is. Their schedule's so weak the rest of the way. If they could beat the Cowboys in week 17, I study this probably more than I should, but I mean, like something like I think DVOA has them at like 11% to get the number one seed. And I'm just like, or I think it's ESPN actually has them 11%. DVOA has them a little higher, 22 or something like that. I'm like, that even seems low because you look at the Eagles schedule. The Eagles got some tough games coming up. 49ers have already dropped 3 games. The Lions really have no losable games the rest of the year, except maybe the Cowboys. So they can get that number one seed. If you got the number one seed, it doesn't matter if you're the best team. I don't think they're the best team in the NFC. But you got 2 home games. That crowd would be absolutely bananas. Can you imagine an NFC championship at Ford Field? That'd be an all-time A-plus crowd.
Shoot, just a divisional game.
Just a divisional game. Just a wild card game for that matter. I mean, they're obviously going to win the division. I just can't. I'm not a Lions fan, but even if somebody grew up rooting in that division, the Lions were never a rival because they stunk. Like you never worried about the Lions. It's like, the Lions, I guess, whatever. Like but I'm not a Lions fan, but I am rooting for this team. Just I think the story is so cool for their fan base.
Just to wrap it up here for people who don't know. The Lions close their season with the Packers this Thursday on Thanksgiving. Then they play at the Saints, at Chicago, versus Denver, at Minnesota, at Dallas, versus the Vikings, excuse me.
Yeah, so, the Vikings are tough and the Broncos are better, but there's no game where you're like, ooh, that's tough, except the Cowboys game. But why can't they go beat the Cowboys? They're a better team than the Cowboys, I think.
Right. And they're certainly right. Like the Vikings are tough. The Broncos have gotten better, but I would still say the Lions are a better team than both of them pretty comfortably.
Well, if I told you they got 7 games left, right? If I told you they went 6-1, you'd be like, yeah, it's actually kind of reasonable. And I think reasonable. 6-1 with the only problem is the Eagles, yeah, they got a tough schedule, but they're really, really good. They'd probably have to lose 3 games with tiebreakers and all that. I have looked at this. And that's probably not going to happen. So the Lions might have to win out to get the number one seed, but that's not even that crazy, which I can't believe we're having this conversation about the Lions. 2 years ago, they were 11-1. Like last year they were 1-6 to start the season. And here we are talking about the Lions possibly being a number one seed. It's awesome. That is what I'm thankful for, Charles. Other than you, all of our colleagues, Jory, Charles Robinson, Joey Galino, all of our people. I am thankful to do this for a living and to talk ball with my friends like you. It is, I mean that, like, I don't want to just let that slide. Like it is pretty cool what we get to do. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. So yeah, I'm thankful for you too. It's been cool getting to know you over the past year. And I think it's time we sign off so we can get some rest and
go buy some bourbon for when that Lions game is over. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I'm at my parents' house right now. We've stocked up for Thursday.
Yes, sir.
And you got a family who's going to bring some stuff in, so I'm ready. I'm ready to get after it, and I'm ready to take a big fat nap on Thursday. Probably right at the start of the 49ers Seahawks game, and I'll wake up just in time to see Brock Purdy do some magic in the second half. But thanks to Frank for coming on. Send some voicemail at speakpipe.com/0blitz. Ask a question. Send your hottest take. Your favorite, least favorite Thanksgiving food. Doesn't matter. We'll listen to it. We'll be back with another episode of the Exempt List next Tuesday and every Tuesday. Tune in tomorrow for an episode of Inside Coverage with Jason Fitz, Charles Robinson, and Jory Epstein. You can find me on Twitter at 4verts. You can find Frank on Twitter at Yahoo Schwab. And you can find Stone on Twitter at SJ Rochelle. We will see you next week.